Hi, this is Andre. I want to talk about the undo function on the Echoplex Digital Pro. Undo, in a basic sense, does three different types of things. It can get rid of audio changes that you've added into a loop, it can cancel functions that you've started, and it can also access loop windowing. We're going to talk about those first two possibilities in this video. Loop windowing is a really big and really important subject for me personally, so I'm going to focus on that in a different one or two videos. Here's undo in the most basic sense and the way that most people tend to use it. I'm going to record a basic loop here. So built up a few layers. Now I'm going to come over here to the undo button. And I'm getting rid of those layers. And then I can finally get rid of the original loop entirely. That's undo in the most basic sense. If that's all you need to know, then this has been a very short video for you. I'm going to try and go into a lot more depth with undo. And part of this is because for me personally as a player, undo has been kind of a bit of a mysterious subject for me for a long time. So there's a lot more going on kind of under the hood than might initially meet the eye. There are some subtleties to using undo. A lot of them I didn't even really become comfortable with myself until I had been doing looping for several years. So I'm going to try and do a bit more of a deep dive with undo on this stuff. Okay, so to start talking about this in a little more depth, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with a short loop, make a percussive sound. I'm going to multiply this out 8 times. And now I'm going to overdub a major scale one note at a time. And I'm deliberately going to wait until a new pass through each loop before I add a new note so that we can look at how undo works. That's the first pass. Second pass. So we're going to start by doing a short press of undo. I'm going to do it right after that last note, the note that kicks in on cycle 8. I'm going to press it right after the beginning of that note, and I'm going to do a short press of undo. And you see how it got cut off? Pop. If you do a short press of undo, it will undo whatever layer you're undoing from the press to the end of the loop. Now if I do a long press, now we got rid of all of that last layer. Let's do the same thing on cycle 7. On that note, I'm going to do a short press of undo. Just got the very, very, very beginning of the note. You can just barely hear the attack there. Now a longer press. Now it's clean. Let's try getting number 6. There we go. So you're truncating the note. Long press. Clears it out. Now I'm going to start with a long press and see if we can get rid of all of number 5. That note there. There we go. Good. Let's do a long press to get rid of number 4. Cool. Let's do a short press to get rid of number 3. Let's do a long press, get rid of the rest of 3. Oh, I got rid of 2 as well. Long press again. That gets rid of the first note that was overdubbed. So long presses versus short presses are going to determine how much of a layer you undo. If you do a short press, you're going to undo right from the button press up until the end of that layer. If you do a longer press, you're going to undo the entire layer. So to speak meaningfully about undo, one thing we need to start talking about is how undo separates an overdub from a non-overdub. And basically, there's a software noise gate built into the audio signal path of the EDP. The idea here is that very quiet sounds are meant to be filtered out so that they don't get overdubbed and don't get added into the undo cue. So in theory, if you're not playing anything, nothing is going to get added into your loop. Now in practice, especially if you're a guitar player like me, and extra especially if you're an electric guitar player who deals with effects and signal paths that are not always so pristine, then sometimes you might find that you overdub stuff without necessarily meaning to because it exceeds the software threshold. So I'm going to shut up and play a little bit. I'm going to start off with a very basic loop. Now I'm going to leave it open a few times. I'm switched to a single coil sound, which is going to produce a little bit of noise. You're probably not going to hear it on the video. I'm going to overdub some things here. And I'm deliberately letting the loop repeat several times in between each overdub. And one more note. All right, close overdub. So let's undo through that and let's see what's happened. Doing a long press of undo, not hearing anything change. Doing another long press of undo. Okay, the bass note got erased. Here's another long press of undo. Not hearing any change. Long press of undo. Now I hear a change. Long press of undo. Not hearing a change. Long press of undo. Not hearing a change. Long press of undo. There's a change. Long press of undo. There's a change. Long press. Don't hear a change. Long press. No change. Long press. No change. Long press. There is a change. Long press. No change. Long press. No change. Long press. There's a change. Long press again. Now we're back to our original hit. Can I get rid of that original hit? Let's see. Yep. So every time I said no change, that's not something that's wrong with the EDP. It's not a bug. It's not the EDP being broken or anything. That's just the nature of the software noise gate. That's the nature of how undo decides what is or is not going to be added to the loop. If you have a really pristine audio signal path, it's probably not going to be an issue. For me, guitar player, to me, the electric guitar is a fundamentally lo-fi instrument to begin with. I know a lot of people might disagree with me on that, and I'm not saying it's the absolute objective truth, but the guitar makes noise, especially if you're using single coil pickups, especially if you're running it through various types of effects, and especially if you're kind of a pack rat like me and you have a really messy studio and you don't have the cleanest signal path with your cables. Noise can creep into it. So again, this is not a complaint about the Echoplex. This is just kind of something to be aware of. If you're feeding it a signal that has a certain amount of background noise, then realistically be aware that it's possible that you might not add anything to the loop consciously, but you might still be adding small layers of background sound that are being overdubbed and are filling up the undo cue. So if you have a situation like I was just describing, where you're doing a long press of undo, but you're still not getting rid of layers, that's what's probably happening. Now you can also do what my friend Gary Lehmann refers to as an undo bomb. What I'm going to do, I'm going to build up layers. And now I'm going to hit undo very quickly in rapid succession. And now we're totally gone. So if you repeat undo, if you do lots of presses of undo one after another, you can actually go through lots of layers at the same time. Let's do that again, because that was a lot of fun. All right, overdub, play my stuff. Okay, that's my dense Lydian thing. Now I'm going to hit undo as quickly as I can. And there it is. We got rid of all the layers basically in one loop iteration's length. Gary Lehmann has what he calls an undo bomb, where he has a MIDI controller. I think Gary uses the Digitech PMC10. And he has it programmed so that he'll press one button and it will send lots and lots of undo commands to the EDP to do that kind of thing with a single button press. So you can get rid of more than one layer at a time. You just have to be really quick with your button presses, or in the case of someone like Gary Lehmann, you need to program an undo bomb into your MIDI controller. Okay, so let's take a second and look at how the Echoplex handles memory in the case of undo, and in the case of memory in general. If you have one loop and your Echoplex is maxed out in its memory, then you have a total of 198 seconds of time. Each additional loop that you add is going to divide that memory. So now you've got two loops you can switch between, each one of which is 99 seconds long. If you change it to 3 loops, each loop can be 66 seconds long. 4 loops is going to be 49.5 seconds. Each additional loop that you add is going to take up a bigger chunk of the Echoplex memory. Now, it's easiest to think of this in terms of the overall length of the loop, but it also affects the undo cue. So again, if I set up 16 different loops, which I never do, but let's say that I did. If I set up 16 different loops, I record a 1 second loop, and then I start overdubbing, I'm going to be able to undo back far less. I'm going to have much less memory for undoing. I'm not going to be able to go back nearly as far before I run out of undo memory as if I have more loops set to 1. If I record the same short loop and I overdub the same amount of layers and then use undo, I'm going to be able to undo much further back if more loops is set to a lower level than if it's set to a higher level. So this is something to keep in mind. If you're using multiple loops, you're not just shortening the maximum amount of time that each loop can be in terms of the length of the audio loop itself, you're also shortening how much memory you have for doing things like undo. That's also going to affect things like windowing when we get to it. So be aware of that. You know, if you're doing something that's really undo intensive, and if you don't need to have a lot of different loops, then it's better to have that be a lower loop number and have access to a longer amount of memory. Even if you're not making a 198 second long loop, if you use undo or windowing or that kind of thing, then having more memory available is going to mean that you'll be able to undo further back. Now, if you've seen the video that we did on reverse, then you'll know that using reverse will actually erase the undo cue. And incidentally, if you haven't seen the reverse video, what's wrong with you? Go watch the reverse video. It's fantastic. But before you do that, be aware that if I record something, come on, there we go. If I hit reverse, I can't undo anymore. Even if I go back to playing the loop forwards, can't undo. Using reverse erases the undo cue. That's just the nature of using reverse. So be aware of that. It might affect you grievously. It might not affect you at all. But if you find yourself doing reverse and then you wonder what's going on with your undo cue, if you're wondering why you can't undo after that, that's why. And go watch that reverse video, for crying out loud. So everything we've been talking about so far has basically involved undoing overdubs. There are other types of audio events that you can also undo. So let me record a basic loop here. How about a note other than the low E so that I can expand my horizons as a guitar player? Okay, I'm going to change the insert mode to replace because I'm Andre LaFosse, and I'm going to add different snippets of audio in there. I'm going to pluck or play with my left hand and press with my right thumb. Okay, so you can undo those bits too. So let's do that. There we go. Yeah. I'm doing long presses here. Let's see if a short press makes any audible difference. When you've got replaced chunks that are that short, you're probably not going to hear a huge difference. Yeah. So you can undo replace. You can also undo feedback, which is really cool. Let me build up a loop. Back to E. All right, I am going to punch holes with the undo knob. I'm going to quickly turn the knob down and then bring it back up. You can undo that. And by doing a short press of undo in the middle of one of those fades, you can get the audio to jump right back in. Like that. Long press. And now it's all the way gone. Let's do a classic fade out. And now let's try undoing that. There it comes. Yep. So everything we've been talking about up till now has involved undoing audio events, whether it was an overdub, something you dropped into the loop with insert, some kind of feedback type thing. You can undo audio elements that you add into a loop. You can also cancel functions. So let's say I'm recording my new loop. I get my really nice accompaniment built up here, painstakingly. Today is Lydian dominant day. And noisy volume pot day. Sorry about that. So let's say that I want to close overdub and then play languidly for several minutes over this Lydian dominant sound, and instead of pressing overdub, I press record. Oh no. What do I do? Well, you could start from scratch, or you could press undo and undo the record. And you can go back. Let me do that again. Oh no, I pressed record. Oh no, I'm done for. No, I'm not. Still embarrassing, but not quite as embarrassing as having to redo the whole thing from scratch. Let's say I want to hit overdub and I accidentally press multiply. You don't have to multiply. Maybe you don't want it to be however many cycles long. Just press undo. And you're okay. Let's say that insert mode is set to insert. You accidentally press that. And you don't want to do that. Undo. Gets you out of there. So this has been a look at undo. I'll be completely honest, I don't have the best relationship with undo. I don't pretend to understand all its subtleties, and I don't consider myself the best candidate to talk about this. Hopefully somebody else out there can expand the body of knowledge, because I'm trying to learn about this stuff too, just like everybody else out there. But this kind of gets us situated a little bit. We talked about getting rid of audio elements. We talked about undoing functions. The main thing that I use undo for is actually loop windowing, which is a really important, really big subject for me personally. And I'm going to do a separate 1 or 2 videos on loop windowing. So please stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in, always. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.